in. But I want to tell you today some stories about what it feels like to sometimes be walking through your life and feel like you had a forehead smacking moment where you felt like you were just building the wrong dream. So that actually happened to me a few months ago. It was back in August, and it's 8 o'clock. I'm being a busy mom. We have to go and drop off our kids at camp. Don't know where we're going, so I rush up the stairs. I have to go grab some stuff for my son. I'm looking at my phone. Where am I going? Where am I dropping him off? I'm just being a crazy, busy woman. Who's ever been a busy person in their life? Yeah, I know, right? Like, we always have so much to do. So I'm looking at my phone, and at this time, my son's stuff is in this little room we like to call the hobbit hole. It's got like this tiny little door, and it's just this cute little man cave, if you want to call it. And so I duck to go through the room, but I instead of actually walking through the room, I hit my head against the wall really hard. I didn't get knocked out, but it was actually a forehead smacking moment that gave me a concussion. And I'm actually wearing earplugs today because the concussion 7 months later is still affecting me, and noises are hard. However, it was one of these moments where I had to decide, do I keep going or do I stop? And I did both. I actually kept going that day and pushed myself through a little too hard until I realized, shit, I've got a concussion, which was not recommended. But I also decided to take a step back and stop and listen to the messages that my life was sending me. So today I'm going to share a bit more about some of these stories. And actually, I'm going to share 3 stories about life, about love, and about work, and how those stories can be big lesson-building stories for you. So first, I just want to thank, how amazing is this event? Thank you, Melissa Sinclair, for putting this on and having me here. And so even if you're not sitting in the room and you're here enjoying the event, let's give a round of applause for Melissa for putting this on. It's such a massive amount of work. Melissa's actually a mom that I met through my son's daycare, so I know how busy she is at home, and it is really incredible that she's pulling this off. I'd love to know a little bit about who's here. So who here feels like she's a giver? Somebody who puts herself not always first, maybe likes to give a lot to other people. I see one hand there, yes. Give a lot, okay. Okay, there's a lot of business owners here. Anybody who's sitting here who also has a business? Who's an entrepreneur? Yes. What kind of business do you have? Oh, I can't hear because my glasses. These are not working. What's that? Interior design. Okay, what about you? Are you in business? In real estate, okay. And then I know Kasha, she does beautiful arts. You're on the radio. All right, and let's see. Today, oh yes, I was going to say, because it's easy to want to get distracted and want to take notes and all that, but I really want you to be present and make the most of this experience today. So I do have the option of you to receive my notes from this talk. I'm going to put it all together. And so Kristen's going to have this sheet here. If you want to receive my notes from this presentation, you can sign up and I'll send it off. So that will be super fun. And that's kind of going around. And if ever you get up, there's also at the back table there my notes. So a little bit about me before I get started and tell you more about these stories. So my name's Anne-Sophie, and I live and work here in Kelowna, but I have clients around the world. Now my furthest client actually I time travel with every time I talk to her because she's 23 hours ahead of me in New Zealand. So it's really fun to have the option these days of working with women all around the world and really connecting heart to heart, soul to soul, no matter where they live. Plus I get to do that from my cozy home office wearing my comfies, so who doesn't want that, right? Super fun. But it didn't always used to be this way. Kristen was asking me before we got started, how did you get into public speaking? And so actually 3 years ago, a little bit more than that, I was morally frozen, paralyzed of thinking of speaking up on a stage. But there was this little voice inside me that said, you really want to do it. So I got my brave on, got courageous, and decided to learn to speak. It started really small. But I think on the other side of every fear, there's a big desire for us to share. And so today, I actually work with women to help them find their true message, find their true voice, and use it to spread love and change lives. And I do that by working with, bringing in some of my skills in media. I do a lot of online, so we do a lot of public speaking with interviews and videos. There's some funny things going on in the front there.
I did after in like the video.
Perfect. So yeah, I used to be really afraid to speak, and actually 3 years ago, I used to work at the federal government. I was working in Ottawa. I had a big job. I was making a great income, and everything sounded like I had the perfect life. Except a piece of me inside was just not feeling that satisfied. Does anybody here have a story like this where you were just like maybe in a job, a J-O-B kind of job that felt like, ugh, I just can't do it? Yeah. So that was me, except I had a big bright smile and people asked me, how's it going? I'm like, I'm good, I'm fine, but it was all bullshit. Because really, I felt like crap. And so 3 years ago on my birthday, I ended up in the ER. So this was September 22nd of 2012. I guess it's a bit more than 3 years ago. Ended up in the ER. I had a really big, bad burnout. And essentially, I had a bacterial infection in my body from my body being so weak. So just screaming at me to stop. And ended up with an IV for a month to start to recover. And that was the start of the new chapters of my life. And I'll tell you a bit more about the actual instigating moment, which was not the hospital trip, that actually got me on the path that I'm on now. But, what I do know, the big lesson there was that as a woman, it's really important that we grow into our dreams and give ourselves the chance to really be who we're meant to be. And in that moment, when I was using all my talents and my gifts and my energy to communicate and really care about projects, but putting that energy in projects I didn't care about, it was sucking my energy dry. And that was I didn't have anything left to give at the end of the day. And that doesn't help anybody. So today I'm like pitching myself. I'm up on stage here at this women's fair. I have more speaking gigs coming. I get to work with clients from around the world, and it feels like it's incredible to have gone from daydreaming from the cubicle of my 19th floor story window in Ottawa to living in Kelowna, mountains, beautiful space, beautiful people, and really doing work that inspires me. So this is really amazing. So we are going to dive into some stories. Who loves stories? Who likes story time? Yeah. Okay. So today, I don't want to just talk about stop building the wrong dream. I also want to tell you stories about how do you know you're building the wrong dream. Because this is not a question a lot of people ask. I think you just kind of keep going, and we're sort of told, grow up, get a house, get a job, do this, and we just kind of follow along. But somebody else's Cinderella story might not be yours. And it's important to start to build your own. So I'm going to share those 3 life stories. And also at the end, I want to share a magical question. We're going to do a little bit of personal growth and work to help you shift into inspired action and course correct if you need to course correct. Questions are such a powerful tool, and that's why I want to leave you with a really powerful question that you can really feel inspired to take action on. And at the end also, so if you have questions during the presentation, please take note of them. I will have some time at the end to answer them. And I am a coach, so I am going to stick around for some. If there's somebody who needs a bit of free coaching, you can report to me, and I will offer that for 1 to 2 people. Lesson 1, Soleia's question. Soleia's my girl, my little girl. She was actually supposed to be here, and she's 8. And she said, oh, this is going to be boring. I'm just going to have to listen to somebody talk for an hour. I'm like, somebody? Your mama. And then she still didn't want to come. So Soleia's my little girl, and when she was 4, here's what happened. So she was 4, and she and I remember holding her hand and walking and being a good mama. And she looked up to me and said, Mommy, so in French though, but Mommy, what can I be when I grow up? That's a question I think universally that every child has asked and every mother or father has answered. And what is the universal answer to that question? Anything. Thank you, Kristen. You can be anything you want. You can be anything you want. So that's what I told her. I looked at her, and it's like the little girl inside of me really believed it. The little girl inside of me looked at my little girl in the eyes and said, you can be anything you want. You can join the circus. You can go to the moon, whatever. So we had an inspiring moment. And I remember that it was in the middle of the summer, just walking around my neighborhood, looking at my nice house, going to my soul-sucking job, realizing, holy shit, I'm lying to her. I am lying to my little girl because I'm telling her one thing and living another. And it's not fair for me to expect for her to become whatever she wants when I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what it takes for me to do that for myself. So that was the instigating moment, which, I realized that then it was like a year later that I ended up in the ER sick, because it's like, my brain knew it, my soul knew it, and then my body just kept going through the motions, like, no, it's not safe to quit, it's not safe to do something else, so I never changed. But at some point, it was what my friend Kasha likes to call it, the universal frying pan that just whacks you in the head and tells you something's got to give, something's got to change, and that's when I did change. And so I wrote here the word nudges. Sometimes the little nudges from the universe, they're not that big. Like that moment of Soleil asking me that small question, it was 30 seconds long. I could have just walked through the moment and moved on and never done anything about it. So there is wisdom everywhere, in every moment, and it's important that we take notice and start to pay attention to those nudges, and often they will come through other people who are close to us, who see us, and will just ask us a question, and your body will feel a little sense of maybe curiosity, discomfort. Something will be a little different than the usual. It's going to take you out of the usual so that you can decide to make a new choice. That brings us to choices. Choices. Everything that we are doing is about choices. We choose to be here today. We choose to be present or not be present. We also choose how we respond to those nudges. So if there's a nudge that's coming and you're feeling like, hey, wait a second, what if I changed? What if I did something else? Be curious and investigate it and see, could start to dream about what it would feel like if you did make those tweaks and those changes. So it is about being inspired and choices. And the last point that I put there was timing, because timing, sometimes the nudge and the choices don't come when you want them to. In fact, often they don't. But they come when you need them. So you can't control the timing of your transformation. You can control how you handle the challenges. So in my story, Soleil asked me the question, and it took me a while of, realizing I was stuck in a whole bunch of excuses and BS and fears to decide, okay, I'm going to realign, okay, I'm going to shift, I'm going to change. And it was a journey. It was a journey of transformation. It was not instantaneous. And the timing of the journey, sometimes, you're already on some sort of a journey now. It is a matter of realizing what is the story of that journey, where is it taking you, and is it taking you where you want to go. This little drawing here that has a little girl where you are now, and then the woman you're going to become later, no matter where you are, that's all exists in your life. And I put that drawing there because there's sometimes the people who are, like my little girl represents herself, but also reminds me of who I've been. And the women who are ahead of me in their age and wisdom, they remind me of also who I can become. And it's the same for all of us. We're all on this one path, one journey. And the person you're meant to be is already in your life. It's a matter of realizing, am I on path to becoming the woman I want to become? One thing I forgot to mention is that the reason I do this work and work with women to help them start to build the right dream and really do work that spreads love and changes lives, that I do believe that we can really change the world in this generation if, as women, we empower ourselves to grow into our biggest dreams. And that way we can become the kind of women the younger ones can look up to, and we can do it together. But it takes courage, it takes strength, it takes almost stubbornness, let's call it, to say, you know what, I'm not quitting. I'm going to keep going, even when the universal frying pan smacks me in the head. So look, in the lesson about life, really look for all of those cues, those nudges, and if you're called to choose differently, choose differently. And sometimes it'll feel a little risky. risky, but that's the sense of it. And through sense of adventure can come a lot of rewards. All right, we're going to go then to the second story, which is, I think, about love. Okay, the second story is about love. And it's not about romantic love, it's about self-love. As women in our busy society these days, there's actually a confidence crisis, especially for professional women. Professional women start out their careers with as much confidence and enthusiasm, if not more, than men. And then the more experience they gain, the more they keep going, the lower their confidence gets. I mean, it's no wonder when you look in the leadership roles, there's about maybe around 60% of leadership roles are women. 16% when women have more education on average than the male population. So that can really, not make you feel so good. But that self-confidence issue also means that there's a self-love gap. There's a lot of women who give much more to everybody else except for themselves. But you can't. It's that whole airplane, put on the oxygen mask first piece. And so my story of love is around that concussion moment when I walked into a wall, literally walked into a wall. Like I don't know what else can wake you up from your life, and ended up then a month later saying, I'm fine, I'm good. And I went to an event, a local event here. I was supporting one of my colleagues at this event, giving her my time in exchange of just being there with her. And I completely overgave. I really overdid it. I'm like, I'm awesome at this, I can do it. And I gave so much that it took me 12 days to recover from the event, 3-day event. I was post-concussed, not a good idea. So then I ended up in the hospital. I ended up in the hospital 3 years exactly to the day that I was in the hospital for a burnout. So I don't know if you like science, it's kind of an interesting one. But I remember, the doctor said, you're okay, you just need to go home. Quit, close your computer, don't work, take some time for yourself, nourish your spirit. And I remember feeling like another holy shift moment, let's call it, where basically I realized that I'd lost myself. I had been doing all this busy work, and for the last few years I'd been building a business for game-changing parents, being the kind of parent who is that role model for her child. And it was time for me to shift and start to let go of some things. So one of the things that I did do to remember who I was, I've always been very creative, is that I decided to literally excavate my markers and my drawing, and I created this artwork. So I just brought it to show you. And this was a moment where I remembered that there was so much more for me to give, but I had to give to myself first. And when I created this is called the Love Bomb. I think it's backwards. Hold on. Show it to you properly. This one is called the Love Bomb, and when I was drawing it, I had so much physical resistance. I'm like, oh, I'm not working, I'm not this. I was just in I'm not doing enough for myself, for the world mode. But I remembered that when I give to myself first, by allowing myself to be creative and draw, amazing things can happen. And while I was drawing this, I remembered that my true work, it's not just about marketing and putting yourself on the stage and finding your voice. Yes, it's about that, but it's also about spreading love and changing lives. Ultimately, that's the work that I'm here to do. And while I was drawing this, I had this big inspired vision on how I'm going to get to Oprah with this spreading love message. Anyway, it all came barreling down, but it really re-inspired me and re-energized me, and was an encouraging moment to learn that it's okay sometimes to let go. Let go of what's holding you back, so you can say no to some things and then say a bigger yes to what you're meant to say yes to. And I had to really simplify and amplify. So what happened from that is that I decided, it was really hard, and Kasha, who's here today, was a witness to every step of this journey of my freakouts and moments of can I really do this? And anyway, all of those moments. And I had to decide, I'm letting go, I'm closing my game-changing parents business. I love it, but it's not the right time. And timing was the issue again. I need to choose to really come back to myself and my roots, and heck, I have a degree in women's studies and journalism. I'm an expert in women's empowerment and how to use your voice, and that's what I need to do. And I really am called to work with women to empower themselves to grow into their biggest dreams, whatever those dreams are. So what I put here is that sometimes the truth comes in a format that you don't want it to come in, but it's the truth. And the truth was for me in that moment, by giving myself space to love myself, nourish myself, do some art, just make some quiet time and tune in. And by the way, this afternoon we're gonna, at 1 p.m., we are gonna do a workshop about how you create some specific space to nourish your spirit every day and change your life. So you can come back for that, we'll workshop that. So by doing all that, I started to realize I don't have to be more than I am already. I am enough. And every one of you in this room is already enough. You are enough. And one thing that happened last fall is that I kept meeting people who were maybe, quote unquote, miles ahead of me on their entrepreneurial journey. And then over and over again, they would tell me, wow, you're on fire. Wow, I love, your energy, your message. And the universal message was, you're enough. Like, stop trying to be something you're not. You're enough right now. Just serve your gifts to the world. And that's the message that really comes through love and really loving more rather than less. Little drawing here. This is a little image that talks about where your dream is when it feels a little bit out of reach. It's bigger than you. It's a little just like, I can see it. I can just see it. So at that point, you have the option of sitting down and looking at it, being like, it's nice to see a dream, and then doing nothing. Or you can decide to grow into the dream. So there's a little cycle here, and then a line that blocks it. This is what I call the wall of fear and doubt. So sometimes we're like, yes, I'm so inspired, I'm going to take action, I'm going to do it, and then fear and doubt hits, and we cycle back to dreaming again, reinventing, re-scheming, replanning, and sitting back down, and still seeing the dream, but never really moving forward. So what we need to do is love ourselves enough to brave our fears, like a few years ago when I said, I'm really afraid of speaking on stage. In fact, when I used to speak on stage, this leg used to shake. I could not make it stop. Anyway, it was kind of funny. But, love yourself enough to brave your fears and leverage them to grow into whatever is the next version of you that is trying to emerge. That woman that exists in your life and she's dying to come and meet you, just give her the tools to start to be a little bit braver. And one of the little tools that I like to use is just to ask, trust, listen, and then take action. So ask, trust, listen, take action. And so ask is, sometimes it's just an open question. What do I need to do right now? And you don't have to answer it. Just trust that the answer will come. Listen, and it might come to you through a conversation with another person. It might come to you in a dream, in your journal, and then take action when you hear that answer of whatever it is that you've asked for. Take action and move forward and take the next baby step. How are we doing for time? I'm completely not following. Okay, getting there. Okay, the last lesson and story for today is about work. So I have talked about work today, but this is really specifically about work, where in the last few months I launched a program. It was called Launched, and it was all like, okay, let me take everything that I know, I'm enough, I've heard I'm enough, and put it all together in this giant, beautiful pot, and I'm going to serve the entire 7-course meal to my audience. And it was great and beautiful, but then as I was going through it, there was a piece of me that felt like I'm pushing a boulder up a hill. And so that is the feeling. If you have a feeling of heaviness about your projects, it's a giant nudge that possibly you are not building the right projects in the right way. But what happened is through this program, so in an online business, you do a lot of different online building activities. I decided to do an interview series, some things I've done before. I've interviewed millionaires, I've interviewed all kinds of people in the last 10 plus years. And so I did an interview series just to feature female change makers, women who have businesses that spread love, change lives, inspire people. They're doing the kind of work that really, really fuels their soul. And in each one of these interviews, I asked them, like, what was the moment when you knew you were building the wrong dream? What did you do to change it? And every one of these women had a story. In fact, many of them said, I have way more than one story, but I'm going to tell you this one. So during this interview series, as I was hearing all these stories, I started to listen to them and think, am I building the wrong dream? Like, am I in the process of building a program that doesn't work for me? And the point of this story is that after I wrapped my launch and did everything quote unquote right, it didn't go exactly as I planned. But there were lessons in the project that I didn't anticipate. So sometimes the purpose of a project that you are undertaking is not the purpose you thought. So the purpose for me of launch was not actually to create a program that had an 8-course meal for all of my people. It was actually to help me realize that what I need to do, how the track I'm on is not going in the right direction. I'm not becoming the woman I'm supposed to be in a few years. I just need to step over here and remember who I am. Again, love myself enough to remember who I am and own the fact that I'm here to help women find their voice, create a platform, become the change makers, become the change that they crave to be in their own world right now, use their voice to do it, and do it the fun way. And so that's an important lesson because it's easy to feel sometimes in those moments of apparent failure, that we are failures, and then go, shit, that didn't work, and just feel down about it. But instead, you can use what one of my mentors calls finding the diamonds in the dog shit, which is a funny statement, but where you look for the nuggets and realize, like, where was the win? And start to ask yourself the question, what was the lesson in this for me? What was I actually supposed to experience and live from this moment and this lesson? And it's when that happens that we can actually start to get closer to that dream and not feel like you're window shopping the dream anymore and really start getting closer and closer. So what happened to me here has been the full circle effect. I actually brought some business cards, they're on the table at the back, that I printed 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. And on them, so for a while my business card said that I was working with parents. That's what it said in Game Changing Parents. But right when I started business, before I started to overthink too much, I put on my cards I was a women's coach, an inspirational, motivational speaker, and I help women step into their life's leading role. It was like actually what I'm doing now, that I doubted and thought that I was off course for a while, but I overthought it. And so sometimes our life, we come full circle. And the truth, those moments of truth are subtle. You know, that card, the tagline, what I had a few years ago, I ended up being, rather than being my own #1 fan, I started to cut it apart. And so I didn't love myself enough to believe I could do it. But at the same time, those little moments, they come back, the truth circles back, and you have to trust that you can totally do it. So it is kind of like you're gaming yourself sometimes. You know, you play this way, and then you're like, oh, wrong one, I'm going taking a snake down, and let's see where there's the ladder back up. So it's a bit like that. Okay. I have just a few more little things, and then we're going to talk about the magical question. So, how do we realign? I'm going to share just a couple of little gold nuggets that I love. How versus who. So I talked today in my 3 stories about life, about love, and about work, about 3 different stories that are all about how things happen. But there's one thing that never changed, and that is that who I was never changed. So how you do it matters, but who you are while you do what you do matters most. And it's important to just stay in integrity, feel like what's going on inside and outside is as matched up as possible. Many people talk about this as being aligned, but it really is where you feel like there is no difference between who you are, you know, with one person, another person in your work. You're just the same person all the time. So who you are matters more than how you do it. And then one little, let's say, not an alarm, but something to watch out for, a behavior to watch out for, is if you're stuck in the C's, the 3 C's, which is when you're window shopping a dream and you might be either comparing yourself to other women, saying, oh, I really want what she's having. Damn, I can't have it. So that's the complaining that comes in. And then the third one is complacency, doing nothing about it. Comparing, complaining, and complacency. If you notice yourself, or one of your girlfriends, somebody calls to you that's just comparing, complaining, complacency, and therefore losing her confidence, it's time to have a real loving time and be like, hey, what are you doing? Let's shift out of that and not make a big deal out of it. It's no big deal. It's fine. We just need to just shift out of it. All right. Any questions about anything I've said? That was a lot of information. Okay, cool. So we're going to do just the magical question at the end to talk about what you can do to realign. It can be challenging to figure out when you have a moment of, oh no, I'm not exactly where I want to be. How do you realign? So one of the questions I like to ask is, imagine you have one last hour with someone and you have the opportunity to change their life. In the context of a business owner, I will ask you, imagine you have one last client conversation. This is it. You don't have any other one. I don't know why, but that's the last one. Who are you going to talk to? What are you going to say to them, and why? And answering that question allows you to see whose life are you here to change? What are you going to say to change their life? And why is that person the one you're choosing? Some people will answer, I want to change my own life. But, in my case, when I asked myself that question, I'm like, well, I want to really work with a change maker, a woman who has that deep desire to impact the lives of millions of people. Because then if I can't do it, then she will be able to be the next ripple of change in the world. So that was my answer. So that question may take you a moment to answer, but put yourself in that situation of what would be that one last conversation with somebody whose life you can change. What will you say? Why would you say it? Who is that person? And then take your answer and make that list your today list, not your Sunday list. That's your to-do. It's your action plan. Whatever you want for other people is typically what you want for yourself, and that question is a great way to do it. So, let's see. I think I'm kind of wrapping. Yes, so for those of you who want to get access to my notes, I'm going to send a little wrap-up, and if the videos are working, I will send them as well. And as well as some bonus material, you can go to my URL for those who are in the room, Anne-Sophie/KWFair2016. And I would love to hear if there's any questions, or if anybody has, if anybody's brave enough to say, what is the one thing you'd love to change that would have the most impact in your life right now? And otherwise, that's it. That is my presentation.
Awesome. Thank you to Anne-Sophie Dumetz for that. That was incredible. She'll be back again 1 o'clock this afternoon, and it'll be a little different format. You're going to be doing a workshop this afternoon that will be able to be more interactive, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So definitely stick around for that. There's going to be more talks today as well. And if you're walking around right now and you've got your passport, make sure you're stopping at the vendors and getting everybody to sign off on those so that you can get yourself